Journeys Ahead, The Song of Serpents, Finale, Ragnarök. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. Void? Did we just... Jida asked, now slowly standing to her feet. Yeah, we did. We got it. As Void tried to stand himself up, the spark instantly clutched his stomach and landed hard back upon the ground, now coughing and hacking out globs of both spit and blood. Void! Void! Jida cried, proceeding to kneel beside him. Reaching down, she gently lifted her beloved back up and gasped the almost gory trail of saliva spilling from his mouth. Oh my god! Oh my god! What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Slowly lifting his head up and holding on to Jida's shoulder for support, the spark shook his head in a solemn no, before weakly falling back to the ground. Freckles, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, alright? I'm kind of dying. Void revealed, trying to stand again. Wait, what? Jida cried back with a sense of burning dread in her voice. What the hell do you mean you're kinda dying? Wincing, Void began to tense his breaths, feeling as if life was beginning to crumble all around. Nauseous bite. That power, it's been slowly killing me for the last day at most. We need to get to Nock and another friend that's with us. Fast. The spark weakly groaned as he looked into Jida's eyes. They should have gone one of those teleporting snakes that got us here. We need to get back to Bournemouth. Healing Pond. Think of a game plan. Void babbled, leaving Jida a bit confused. However, the threat of possible death for her love made her brush aside everything else in the moment. If he knew how to help himself, she would listen. Oh my god, okay. What do you need me to do? Jida asked as the world erupted with both green and orange lightning, as the moon and sun eclipsed across one another, creating a dim light before all. Grunting, Void began to extend his arms and legs upon Jida. Parts of his clothes began to revert into his body, whilst his head lowered into his chest, leaving Jida rather confused. Whoa, what are you doing? She asked as the spark transformed himself into some kind of backpack-like device. His arms and legs both connected together around the musician's shoulders, while a small clear glass window appeared inside Void's chest cavity, allowing him to look out from behind. I'm resting myself into a temporary stasis lock. Sparks used to use these modes to hold on to life when in critical condition. They would carry each other essentially while their inner body did its best to heal itself. This should last me till we... Void trailed off before his words began to weakly slur. Oh my god, okay, where do you need to... Suddenly appearing within the large torn open hole left by Yaru, a juvenile dimensional serpent arose to the shock of Jida, alongside Void, who was sadly fading fast in his small little life chamber, feeling unsure of how to react to things. However, minus it all, he still had enough energy to be sarcastic. Speak of the devils, he said while Jida gazed upon the animal. The small serpent was red in scales, a complete contrast to the other ghostly apparitions. It had big, bulbous eyes, with a tiny tongue hanging out by its side. It even panted like a dog, before crawling itself inside the broken chapel. Looking past the beast and atop its hide, Jida saw two figures, one being that of Nock and Coco, the latter of which she hadn't met yet. Jida! Nock cried in joy before sliding off the serpent and running to his sister's warm embrace. Nock! Jida cried back as the two siblings embraced with a mighty hug. Hi! It's nice to meet you! Coco greeted as she hopped over towards the trio as well, leaving Jida to nod in a weak greeting. Although the moment was tender, Jida couldn't help but fall back into a state of fear from the reality that surrounded themselves. Nock and Coco could see it visibly in her eyes. We saw what happened to the moon! Did Void not... Wait a second, Is he? Nock asked as he pointed towards the spark's new shape, dangling off Jaida's back. He's dying! We need to help him now! Jaida blurted with tears streaming down her face. He said something about a place called Bournemouth. A healing pond? Do you guys know what he's talking about? Jaida worriedly asked as she looked between the mechanic and Frog. That's my hometown. The healing pond, as the name implies, should fix him. But we gotta hurry. Name's Coco, by the way. The Frog exclaimed before leaping backwards and beckoning for Jaida and Nock to follow. Without hesitation, the duo, with Void upon her back, quickly ran over and mounted the baby serpent. Sitting upon its scales, Jaida couldn't help but hold on to the spark's shoulder straps, which were just hands, wrapped tightly, or rather, holding upon Jaida. He was shaking. Although he didn't want to admit it, Void was scared, and Jaida could feel it. Don't worry, you'll be okay. You'll be okay, right? Jaida asked as the serpent began to rise and fly out of the fortress, leaving Naj's Constrictor clan to their own. The healing pond should help him, but I'm not sure how long he has. And that goes for all of us. Coco mentioned as a mixture of teal and orange lightning blasted themselves across the sky in a violent manner. Oh my god. Is this the... Nock asked before Coco interrupted. End of the world? Yep. She cried before patting the serpent's head and asking, Okay, boy, Bournemouth. Take us to Bournemouth. With a hard and primal yip, the baby serpent began to blast ahead and listen to Coco, connecting psychologically to her touch, to her mind. This is how the creatures traveled. They go where their riders wanted them to go. In reaction, its body began to spark and glow, until suddenly, the creature seamlessly whirled out of Naj's fortress to the outskirts. The transition had been almost seamless. Whoa! Nock cried as Coco began to steer the serpent downwards, heading towards a small town that was visibly in a panic. Hang on! She cried before soaring all of them downwards. Below in Bournemouth, ripples began to panic back and forth, running amok and scared for their lives as the beginning of the end had quickly risen upon them. Standing in the center of this community chaos was the grandmother, trying to calm everyone and maintain order. That was until they all turned their heads upwards and bare witness as one of their own, Coco, rode down upon them with her newfound pet. By the gods, said the grandmother, now gasping as the creature made landfall. Wet mud and grass flew upwards from the beast's landing, but it was clear that the creature had no ill intentions. It was only a baby. We're back, and with terrible news! Coco cried before she leapt off the serpent and ran towards the grandmother. Approaching with many behind her, the large axolotl eyed Coco down with a tense face before retorting in an anxiety-filled huff. I can clearly see that, Coco. Where are your friends? Where's the sparklet? Before Coco could even explain, the grandmother craned her gaze upwards to Nock and who she could only assume to have been Jaida, carrying the dying spark upon her back, both with the faces of anguish on display. Oh no, the axolotl muttered as both Jaida and Nock ran up to her and Coco. Where's the healing pond? Jaida demanded to know, skipping past the introductions. Where is it? She asked again, now taking the spark off her back and holding him gently like a child. Where is it? She cried again, with her hair now burning with a ferocious fire. Quickly maneuvering forward, the grandmother placed a hand upon the spark's dying build, looking at him through the glass casing and making out his cheek-sunken face. In the lodge, over there on top of the roof, the axolotl revealed, pointing towards an upper dome window. If you come with us now, we will... Before the grandmother could finish, Jaida already made her move for the pond, warping the long distance and entering the Great Lodge all by herself. Jaida! Nock cried as both him and Coco began to rush towards the lodge themselves. However, suddenly stopping as a loud, reverberated cry echoed across the land. Halting in their spots, everyone turned to the south and upon a cluster of flashing green-teal clouds. As they sparked with life, all they could see was the outline of a large, slithering figure making its way forward. And as the lightning struck once again, she appeared. crawling out from the storm and clenching her massive clawed talons upon two distant mountains. The glowing form of Yaru shrieked with a primordial cry, shaking all those who stood below to their cores. It was then another sound came from the north, a low, guttural growl that sent a warm breeze to brush through all. Turning their heads again, everyone gazed upon what they could see to be both dark and orange clouds approaching, all glimmering with flaming light and sparking fire. It was then the second serpent made its presence known. Emerging from his side of the storm, the fire serpent, Warnog, revealed himself to all in his fiery form of glory. Warnog looked to be around the same length and size as Yaru, 800 feet at most. His body color was that of the same hues as Jaida's skin, a dirt gray brown with what had to be thousands of constellations going all around his body. Unlike Yaru, Warnog had a long, burning mane, beard, and shoulder feathers that gave off a threatening and tender warmth. He even had two large antler-like horns sprouting from his head, with eyes glimmering that of orange. The massive fire serpent glanced down to everyone in Bournemouth, and then back to Yaru, looking concerned for the people's well-beings.
Leave them alone, my love.
Warnog bellowed as he hovered above Bournemouth in an almost protective manner. His voice was more gentle than Yaru's, tender and caring, almost fatherly in a sense.
Still caring for the worms as always, I see. Have the years trapped not change your mind?
Yaru retorted before rising up in an intimidation display.
I will not allow you to take away their freedom. This is our creation, our life. And like any other form of life, they must be allowed to choose for themselves.
Warnog retorted, throwing his arms to the side.
You cannot control them like pets. It is wrong.
Snarling, Yaru's gem began to ignite into a bright teal alongside her spines, before she herself spat back in her own sense of rage.
If not under control, then what's the point of creation, my love?
Scowling, Warnog reeled his head back and lunged forward with a mighty roar, in turn leading the Yaru to do the same. Then, to everyone's horror, the two flew at one another and collided with a mighty shockwave erupting across the lands. "Everyone, inside now!" the grandmother exclaimed as the two serpents began to engage in their duel, a clash of gods, the fight of the final days, or rather, the kiss of death.
I'm not cut out for this shit!
Nock cried before Coco picked him up and ran with the rest of the ripples, heading towards the Great Lodge. All the while, the mighty battle within the sky had only just begun. Warping into the Great Lodge's upper floor, Jaida found herself tripping and stumbling for a moment as the spark's body suddenly reverted back to its normal state. As it did, Floyd nearly fell limp within Jaida's arms. The only things indicating that he was still alive were both his raspy breathing and his gentle hold upon Jaida's hand. Craning her gaze upwards, the musician laid her sights upon the healing pond. Its water shimmered a beautiful blue against the now flashing colors of battle from outside. Jaida, however, could care less about what the giant snakes were doing, for only one thing mattered to her in the moment. Floyd, we're almost there," Jaida weakly expressed as she began to carry her love to the pond. Her legs felt the buckle, her mind began to cry out in rage as Void barely gave a response. Just a mere squeeze upon her hand is all he could muster. All the energy he had used upon Naja and his clan, it had finally caught up to him. "It's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay," Jaida expressed as she entered into the warm and soothing feeling of the water. The best way to describe it was like a mother's kiss. Although not fixing a wound, the thought and compassion behind it made it feel as such. "You're gonna be okay. You hear me? You're gonna be okay," Jaida weakly called again as the spark's grip began to loosen. "He's gonna be okay. He's gonna be okay. He's gonna be okay," Jaida now whispered to herself as a deep sense of dread wrapped its cold hands around her throat. Please, oh God, please." Kneeling down, Jida placed the spark within the healing water, making sure that his entire body, except for his face, was submerged. Void's breathing sounded to get worse, raspier, slower. He was fading fast. Please work. Please work, please work, please work. Jida said as her burning flame fell to a cold chill around her soul. The healing water, it wasn't working fast enough. As she caressed the spark within the water, Void, mustering all the strength he had left, gently raised his right hand up and brushed the side of Jida's cheek with the back of his hand. His once warm, soft metal was now that of a winter cold. Upon feeling this, Jida's heart began to weaken from stress. Her mind raced with a panic and dread as well, while the inevitable outcome slowly approached. It was as though death had permeated the room around them. I love you. Void lovingly called in a shallow whisper, whilst even gently opening his eyes to look upon Jida for what could have been the final time. At that same time, Nock, Coco, the grandmother, and many other ripples entered the room and stopped dead still at what they were seeing. Oh no. Nock gasped as he ran and stood upon the water's edge. Please, Void, please. Jida wept as the spark closed his eyes and looked to let go. His arms and hand upon Jida's cheek slowly slicked its way back down before plopping into the water with a tiny splash. No. Jida wept as Void's breathing suddenly ceased with one final gasp. No! Coco cried out while covering her mouth in shock. The grandmother, however, simply looked away in sorrow. Don't go! Don't go! Void, please! Don't go! Jida cried while shaking the spark's shoulders, all while watching in dismay as the color in his body began to all fade into a cold and lifeless gray, leaving nothing but an empty husk of what was once a selfless soul, a hero, a friend, and a lover. The last of the sparks had passed away. No! Please, no! Jida continued to plead while shaking the one she once loved. Please don't do this! Don't leave me too! Not you too! Jida cried as her orange hair flared into that of a deep shade of satin blue. It was a new flame that no one had ever seen before. Not you too! No. It's all she could weep while slumping herself upon the spark's lifeless body, sobbing uncontrollably on his head in an emotional eruption of pain. The roars from the battle could only be heard as mere chips compared to the deafening cry of loss Jida exposed. Pulling Void's lifeless body close, Jida rocked back and forth in the water, cradling him in a state of shock and regret. Don't go, is all she could say as her orange burning tears gently fell upon the spark's face and body. I need you. More and more of Jida's sorrowing cries doused the spark as he remained lifeless and cold within the contrasting blue water. Everyone wanted to say something, comfort the musician, tell her it would be okay. Yet there was something too strong about losing a loved one, something that words couldn't quench. All everyone could do was lower their heads and mourn in silence. Tear after tear fell and fizzled upon the spark, orange markings that left gentle waves of warmth upon his soulless form. However, one tear landed somewhere else, a place where the others hadn't. Landing upon his neck, an orange flame-filled tear drizzled down, drooping between the metallic seams of the spark's neck to going lower and lower, all up before it made its final resting stop. Soaking down, the small orange droplet of morning love managed to leak its way into an unexpected spot, that being the bite wound within Void's neck, seeping all the way down until reaching the spark's interior, mixing with the remaining bloodstream that had almost faded from his body. Suddenly, with a sparking surge of energy, a mixture of teal and orange electricity buzzed across Void's lifeless form, startling and slightly electrocuting Jida off his lifeless body. Ah! She cried whilst falling upon her rear in the water. A mixture of gasps and shocked noises filled the room as Void's corpse began to buzz between teal and orange surges of power, leaving everyone astonished as to what was happening. What the? Jida gasped as she slowly stood to her feet. The bright electricity went back and forth at a rapid pace, switching between fiery orange and venomous electrical teal, until suddenly, they collided as one, flashing a deep shade of blue of beautiful sapphire, and then, nothing. The electrical current stopped, leaving Void to merely limp back into the water once more, leaving everyone in utter shock at the sight. What the hell just happened? Nock asked while Jida slowly reapproached Void's body, now with a burning sense of curiosity. But Blue? She asked. Wait a second. Coco gasped as her eyes widened upon the lifeless spark. Turning around, both Jida and Nock stared upon the young frog, curious as to what she was going to say, until a familiar sound suddenly began to rise in volume. Slowly turning back to the spark, everyone watched in utter disbelief as his horns, his skin, his everything began to pulsate with a sapphire glow. Not green, not red, blue. And then, the impossible happened. Opening his eyes with a gasp, the glowing blue form of Void quickly rose his arms back and pushed himself out of the water, to everyone's utter shock. Standing on his feet for only a moment, the spark clenched his fists and threw his arms to the side. His body that had been glowing blue then ignited with a powerful yet electrical pulse of energy that engulfed Void into a mixture of white and blue cosmic fire, alongside blue and white sparking venom? Or rather, both. Cosmic electricity. As the surge around the spark's body finished, Void's grayed out form ignited to life with a whole new power of color. His normal skin returned to light, while everything else shimmered with something else. Void's hoodie piece, chest crest, lower arms, and even his boots suddenly ignited to life with a transparent surge of both white and blue energy that illuminated the room to life. Starting as a sapphire glow near the top bits and ending into a winter white near the bottom halves. Within his form, everyone could see sparking surges of electricity that held the same flame aesthetic as cosmic fire, looking almost beautifully charged in a sense. Void's hose-like appendages, legs, arms, abdomen, and even his shoulders shimmered with a similar vein of glow, only looking to be partially illuminated. His shorts reverted to a black hue as well, along with his boots, in some aspects. It looked as though to be the same influence of energy that the venom once held, but now mixed with a charge of spark energy as well as Jida's flame, leaving everyone in the room awestruck at the sudden revival of Void Novason. Whoa, hey, I blacked out for a second there. What's going on? The spark trailed off as he looked to the shocked faces of everyone in the room, and then down to his body, which buzzed with soft currents of electricity. Whoa, what on earth? The spark mumbled as he patted himself down and stared in awe upon his new glowing flame. What is this? I feel amazing. Void added as he pressed his hands back upon his chest and gazed back upon Jida, while the bite wound upon his neck slowly healed itself at long last. Holy shit! Nock cried as he adjusted his glasses. Void! Jida cried in disbelief as she lunged forward and hugged the spark with all her might. Whoa, hey, are you alright? What happened? Are you hurt? Is everyone okay? The spark asked as the two of them leaned upon each other's foreheads. You were... Jida couldn't even say it before shoving her head into the spark's shoulder, gently crying with tears of pain and relief. I was what? Void asked as Nock now ran into the pond, hugging upon his leg in relief. You are dead! You died, man! Nock wailed, making Void's eyes widen in shock. What? I was? I could have sworn I just passed out. The spark expressed in a shocked state. Wait a second. If I was dead, then how am I? Void trailed off before looking down at himself once more, gazing upon his new, shining blue haze. Jida's tears. I watched them seep into your bite wound. Coco blurted, hopping into the water herself. Looking upon the ripple, Void, Jida, and Nock tilted their heads, curious as to how that had any impact on how Void survived. Think about it. Warnog and Yaru, their combined love created our world. It created life. Coco exclaimed before placing both of her webbed hands upon Void and Jida's shoulders. Jida, you hold Warnog's power. And Void, you... well, I guess you did hold Yaru's. The mixtures of energy. Your love for each other. It must have... Coco trailed off before Void chimed in. Resurrected me. Their love. Our love. It gave me... life. Jida finished as the two star-crossed lovers locked eyes and began to both slightly chuckle in astonishment. Their energy gave us life. Ophus's life. That same love revived your soul. And it appears whatever power you sparks possess, it gave you some type of energy boost. The grandmother chimed in as Void opened his palms and gently summoned surges of blue electricity to spark the light. So, I'm cured? Void asked before looking towards the grandmother with hopeful eyes. More than cured? You, my friend, have just been upgraded. Evolved. Looks like you can really live up to that spark name now, huh? Coco added, leaving Void to smile and clench his fist. Well, I'll be damned. Wonder what I could do now. Void questioned before the sound of the serpents roaring erupted from outside. Turning towards the domed window, everyone bare witness to the sight of the mighty Warnog and Yaru duking it out upon the jungle skies above Ophus. The massive beasts both bit, slashed, and even breathed their own sets of fire upon one another. As they did so, their beams of flame locked. A mixture of both green and orange erupted before all, until Warnog was overpowered by Yaru's blast, sending what was the good serpent crashing with a roar, while Yaru, the evil side of their coin, bellowed in a triumph, beginning to now advance upon her love. Oh no. Void whispered as their song of death raged on. You could say that again. Jida added while wrapping her hand around the sparks. I just gotta ask. Is there any way in hell we could stop this? Nock asked, looking between Void and Jida, and then to the ripples behind themselves. The Blade of Sleek. Void suddenly blurted as he turned back to face the grandmother. You said the sword banished them once. An ill warrior supposedly said to banish them again. Void reminded, making the large axolotl wince in thought. In a supposed flame of sacrifice, yes. She said before snapping her fingers and suddenly summoning the dark steel blade before all. Sparklet, it said that it will involve a sacrifice if used. Are you... Before the grandmother could finish, Void spoke aloud before all. Hey, like I said, screw prophecy. Anything that's written can always be rewritten. Like my girl here once said, we can write our own stories. Void explained before looking at Jida, who blushed at the mention of being called his girl. No one has to die. Void expressed, now looking to Nock. Not us, not Ophus, but maybe some gods. Void added while tilting his head to the side with a little bounce. Just to let you know, if you kill one of them, the world will die as well. They must be banished or perhaps just one. Coco explained before everyone set their sights upon the clear monster in the situation. Yaru, who was wiping the floor with poor Warnog. Okay, gotcha. I think I may just know where to banish her. Void revealed as he approached the sword. A reality where she'll be frozen for good. Not killed, but trapped for eternity. He continued, reaching out and taking hold of the weapon. A place where someone as tyrannical as her belongs. The spark finished, bringing the sword down to his side. That was the plan. For the sword. It didn't budge. What the? Void asked as he pulled and tugged upon its handle, leaving the sword to still refuse. Hey, what gives? Void asked as everyone looked on with confused gazes. The sword can only be donned by an ill warrior, Sparklet. It's just how it was crafted to be. Raising an eyebrow, Void shook his head before talking again. I'm poisoned, though. Shit, I'm cured. Damn it. Void exclaimed before looking to Jida. Are you ill? He asked, leaving her to shake her head. Are you? Void asked again, looking to Coco. Is there anyone here that's sick? Achoo! Slowly turning around, everyone looked down to the one who had sneezed. There, standing in the glimmering orange and teal light, was Nock. Glancing up at everyone, the mechanic didn't say a word as his worried eyes jumped from Void, Jida, the ripples, and then towards the blade of Sleek. Without saying a word, the small mechanic slowly marched his way towards the weapon with an anxiety-filled face on display. Gently reaching up with his small hand, he wrapped his mitts around the weapon, and then, to everyone's shock, moved the blade out of its magic seal and held it down in front of himself, akin to a knight at the round table. You've gotta be shitting me! Nock groaned as everyone looked upon him with stunned eyes. Well, we'll make it work, the spark said as everyone turned to the chaos that had been going down outside. We'll, hopefully, make it work. Standing atop the roof of the Great Lodge, Void, Jida, Nock, and even Coco stood defiant, but watching in dismay as Yaru threw Warnog around like a chew toy. They had to work fast if they were to prevent the world's destruction. Alright, game plan. Me and Nock are gonna distract the big green angry bitch. When we do, Jida, you and Coco are gonna go check up on Warnog. Maybe try to speak to him if possible. Cause Lord knows we ain't gonna be able to stop her by ourselves. Void explained before looking at Nock. Now, as we know, in the prophecy, it said the warrior would die if they used the blade. So to protect Nock and keep him safe, we'll use the weapon as bait. Void revealed, pointing to the blade of Sleek. Personally, if I saw a weapon that banished me, I'd personally try and get rid of it with any chance I got. Knowing Miss Gemstone over there's temper, I'm sure it'll work. Void continued, reminiscing on his own attacks before looking back at Jida and Coco. When you communicate to Warnog, if possible, tell him this. My plan is to warp Yaru to the Nine Realms, the Winters of Midgard to be exact. That place should be enough to freeze Yaru in place. Plus, Thor could use the company. Void added, leaving Jida to nod and then tilt her head. I still can't get over the fact that you've been to the Nine Realms. Like, what the hell, man? Nock groaned as he playfully swung the sword around. That's the plan. With Warnog's dimensional hopping abilities, if the strike is just right, Yaru will be trapped and frozen, leaving Warnog to control this world and allow for everyone to have free will. Bing bang boom, day saved, and we go home. Void said with a worried smile and awkward hand motions. Hopefully. I mean, Warnog is a cosmic fire god. I'm sure we'll have enough power to send her away. I hope. Jida expressed before closing her arms. It's either that or we all die. Coco added as she crouched like a regular frog and watched the fight. Reassuring as always, Coco. Reassuring as always. Void explained before turning and taking hold of Jida by her hands, gently making her face him within the pale dim lights of the eclipse. Jida, listen. If this doesn't work, if this backfires horribly... Void began, lowering his head with a tired breath. No, it'll work. We saved the Omniverse together, remember? Saving a world should just be like breadcrumbs in terms of difficulty. The musician reassured as she lifted the spark's head back up. We're gonna get through this. Together. Leaning forward, Jida gave Void a quick little kiss before letting go of his hands and patting his glowing blue chest. That's for luck. Jida finished before stepping back from the blushing spark. Was it? Or did he just want to kiss me again? Void asked with a smile and raised eyebrow. Without a word and with a smirk, Jida flicked her hair to the side and took Coco by the arm, proceeding to then warp out of view. When we get back home, keep that stuff private. She's still my sister, you know. Nock asked with a sarcastic yet nervous grin on his face. If you and Kot make something work, I won't judge. Void returned as he picked up Nock and activated his wind turbines. Come on, let's save the world. With a powerful head slash, Yaru smashed Warnock to the side and proceeded to unleash a wave of hellfire venom upon the beast. The mighty fire god roared in anguish as the acid strike wounded and scarred his flesh, leaving the massive creature to fall from the sky and crash hard upon the world below. Mountains crumbled, trees went flying, and even rivers splashed away upon the mighty impact.
Yaru!
The mighty titan groaned as the massive teal snake slithered her way down, proceeding to pin the head of her love with her right clawed hand.
You still hold back, my dear, both in thought and strength.
Yaru expressed with a sinister smile as she slowly opened her mouth and got ready to deliver the killing blow upon the larger-than-life god.
Farewell, my love. I'll take good care of this place in your absence.
Yaru retorted, nearly about to give the killing blow. That was, however, until a sound erupted from behind. It was a whistle. A sharp whistle that struck the mind of Yaru. Snapping her mouth with a snarl, the large goddess slowly turned her large head to look behind herself, only to be met with one sight. Hovering in the air with Nock dangling in his arms was Void, thrusters ignited and body glimmering an ocean hue in the soft stormfall. Squinting her large eyes and snarling with a deep and guttural growl, Yaru slowly craned herself up and glared down upon the spark and mechanic with a menacing posture.
Nova Sun, you are supposed to be dead.
Yaru muttered as steam huffed from her nostrils with a burning smoke. Well, I've been described as a cockroach once or twice. You think I'm gone, but I always find a way back. The spark returned with a smug grin on display. Before the large snake could speak again, her massive eyes slowly craned down to the mechanic, and then to what was in his hands. Instantly, the beast's confusion turned into that of what Void and Nock instantly recognized to be anxiety.
What is that?
The beast barked with a deep tone, knowing full well what she was looking at. Recognize it? The little stick that trapped you? Void boasted as Nock wordly held the weapon up and before themselves. Baring her teeth, Yaru began to fully turn herself around and completely and utterly tower over the two below her. A permanent state of anger was now held within her glowing eyes, until the beast craned down and roared with a mighty cry. Holy shit, go Void, go! Nock screamed in fear before he was silenced by Void's battle mask that appeared and snapped over his small nerdy head. Not even seconds after, Void turned and blasted in the opposite direction, leading to the massive serpent to give chase, leaving Warnog to rest and quelch his breath upon the ground. Watching from afar, both Jida and Coco bear witness as Void and Nock soared off with the massive snake trailing behind them. It looked almost identical to something you would see in a sci-fi or fantasy film. And yet, here they were, now witnessing it before their very eyes. Nock was right. Your boyfriend is insane. Coco blurted before looking at Jida, who simply nodded her head with a blush and then licking the warnog upon the ground. The poor animal was bleeding and tired. If Void and Nock hadn't stepped in, it would have been game over. Well, that's just his charm. Now come on. Jida mentioned before taking Coco by the hand and warping to the large snake below. Reappearing upon the thrown-up soil and debris, Coco and Jida laid their sights upon the massive form of Warnog, who was weakly trying to get up. The large beast slowly swayed its head, or rather, drug it across the ground, just trying to build up strength to fight on. With wide eyes and slow steps, Jida rose both of her hands and held them forward towards the massive beast. As Jida approached, she began to notice that her skin was starting to flare with its constellation patterns, reacting to the pressure of Warnog's essence. It was surreal for the musician. After all this time, years of curious nature to where her powers came from, here she stood, tall and now before the beast of the flame, a gentle giant that was more of a protector than a tyrannical beast as the prophecy foretold. Now less than a foot from Warnog's resting snout, Jida found herself to be half the size of his teeth, just making her realize how small she was compared to the behemoth. Watching from behind, Coco gazed upon the musician as she gently rose her hand up and pressed it against the snout of Warnog, causing the entirety of her hand and half of her arm to shimmer with energy. This small sense of touch, the connection of constellations, made the beast slowly open his eyes and look down upon the musician, leaving her the gulp and a sense of nervousness. Hi. Can you hear me? Jida asked in one of the softest voices she could muster. Slowly opening its mouth, Warnog began to talk back, causing Jida's hair to gently blow from his warm breath.
Yes.
Warnog answered, leaving Jida with chills to his mighty yet fatherly voice.
I sense the great flame in you. Do you wield the fire?
Warnog then asked, leaving Jida to slowly nod. Yes. Yours, to be exact. Jida nodded, making Warnog slowly lift his head back up and look down fully upon the fire wielder.
Are you the one in which Naja bestowed the power upon?
Warnog asked, leaving Jida to bite her lower lip and gently nod once more.
I can sense what has happened, what he has done to you. My deepest sympathies for the loss of your loved ones, young Flame.
Warnog remorsefully apologized as he placed both of his claws upon the ground and gently hoisted himself up.
My flames were meant to give life, provide warmth, not take those and leave them cold. If you have come for vengeance upon me, I assure you, this isn't what I wanted.
Warnog added, before hanging his head low. No, that's not it at all. Me and my friends, we have a plan to stop Yaru, and to seal her away in a sense. Jida quickly explained, leaving the large snake to crane his gaze back up and slowly lower it down to be eye level with the musician.
My beloved is a tricky force to be reckoned with, young Flame, but I am all ears if it means protecting this world.
Warnog inquired, leaving Jida to look back at Coco, who gave a smiling thumbs up. Jida then turned her gaze back to the large fire god and gave an awkward smile. Okay, listen closely because this may sound a bit confusing on the first round. Jida expressed as the massive god rested his head and listened before them, like a student towards a teacher. Blasting through the air like a burning rocket, Void with Nock dangling below, whizzed between mountainsides, unusually large trees, and cliff faces, all while the titanic form of Yaru chased from behind. The larger-than-life snake lunged forward and back, snapping her ship-sized jaws at every chance she got, just narrowly eating the duel whole. Void, how do you plan on getting us out of this situation? Nock cried as the two quickly soared around at an 80-degree angle, narrowly getting chomped by the beast once again. You'll see. I have an idea. The spark returned as he set his sights on a waterstead that had landmasses nearby. You can swim, right? Void asked as they avoided another lethal chomp that sent shockwaves across the land. I was on the Aurora High School swim team. Why you ask? Nock questioned before looking down himself. Oh, never mind. The mechanic blurted as Void quickly lowered himself down, creating a blast of water to erupt behind his thrusters. Try not to lose the sword. I think the grandmother would be pretty pissed if you did. Void cried as he got ready to drop Nock into the river. How does one just swim with a sword? Nock asked before Void suddenly dropped him. Good luck. He shouted as the mechanic hit the water with a hard splash. Once Nock was below and safe, Void could feel the pressure of Yaru trailing close behind. If he wanted to live, he would need to act fast. Okay, let's see what I can do. Void asked himself while summoning a surge of electrical cosmic energy to his right fist. Reverting his turbine, Void then quickly whirled himself around and threw a hard punch at the closer than he would have liked Yaru. With a large pulse of blue power, Void clashed his fist hard down upon the snake, knocking her back with a sharp, screaming head swing to the side. Now gliding backwards, Void hovered in the air, but shook his hand. The hit had been so powerful that even he had been hurt by it. Wow, okay, he muttered, watching as Yaru slowly recoiled herself back to full form.
New trick, huh, Spark?
Yaru asked as she scrunched her claws and released a foul snarl. Throwing his arms out at his sides, the Spark summoned forth two similar-looking energy blades. They were almost identical to his green venomized weapons, but were now much smoother, smaller, and stable. Pulsating whites and blues, Void's arms didn't burn to their presence, as they both felt to be healthy and strong. More like a remix, I'd say. A love tap, kind of. Void replied while readying himself for what could be his toughest opponent yet.
You can't defeat me, Spark. For what's a mortal to a god?
Yaru asked with a sinister smile as her dorsal plate shimmered with that pulsating green glow.
Time to finish when Naja couldn't.
Yaru exclaimed before releasing a mighty roar upon Void, who merely winced at its call. Lunging forward, Yaru went to eat the Spark, but with a quick form of motion, Void swung his arm blades, creating an X slash across Yaru, sending the beast back a few feet upon impact. Taking his chance, the Spark quickly shot his blades back out and lashed them upon the mighty snake's snout. Pulling himself forward, Void quickly retracted the weapons and delivered a powerful set of blows. A right hook, left hook, and a powerful kick that sent the large serpent recoiling backwards with a tense electrical cry. Sorry, lady. I let a world die once. I won't allow it to happen again. The Spark bellowed as he began to circle and fire upon Yaru within the air, while Nock, who was now ashore, watched with tense eyes.
I saw what was in your head, Spark. You fled your home. Your people. You were too cowardly to stand by your parents' side. You didn't even try to fight and stay. What makes you so brave now?
Yaru asked as she quickly lunged forward with a set of sharp jaw snaps and claw swipes, leaving Void to dodge and evade with way too many close calls. Because I refuse to let it happen again. For the ones I love. Void explained before sharply kicking Yaru upon the side of her face with another electrical pulse. Why fight for control? Why risk everything you made to destroy this world? You made all of it with Warnog. You both made life. People. What drove you down this road, Yaru? Void asked as he sharply uppercut the massive jaw of the beast, sending her spitting through the air. Her tail and body both smashed and crashed against mountains, and forestry as well, throwing up debris and rocks, in turn, making the goddess even more angry.
Warnog wanted them to run free, forge their own paths, their own beliefs. They don't even acknowledge us as gods, non-believers, wrong influences. It's a tainted plane of life. We are but mere folktales to the ungrateful worms. What kind of gods would we be without those who pray to us?
Yaru bellowed as she opened her mouth and shot a beam of burning teal fire. Blasting downwards and soaring around the fire in spirals, Void advanced upon the goddess with a strained face on display. The heat from the blast was permeating. Sweat poured down the spark's brow before he reeled himself up and around, and then smashed both of his fists down hard upon Yaru's head with a pained roar. Ego! Is this really what this is all about? You're fighting your mate, destroying the world because you don't have control over the life you made? That's what all of this is for. Void inquired as he began to deliver another set of punches upon Yaru, sending spit and even a tooth to fly out to the ground.
I am a god, Spark. I was made to be worshipped, to be recognized. It's not like you'd understand. You don't even have people anymore.
Yaru bellowed before swinging herself around and tail swiping Void hard. Just in the nick of time, the Spark summoned forth a Nova rune, but was still met with a powerful knockback. He was still alive, but the hit left him a tad disoriented.
You are but a speck to me, a lonesome ant without a colony. You are but an invader upon all those you know.
Yaru continued, before grabbing the Spark with her large clawed hand.
I've seen your struggle, Spark. Wanting to fit into a world where no one thinks you matter. You think a pathetic little soul like you, someone who can't go out for a drink, can't maintain a job, could take me on all by yourself?
Weakly looking up, Void locked eyes with the large serpent as she licked her lips in a sense of hunger. However, the Spark held no fear, no sadness of the snake's false words. Instead, he had but one feeling, being that of determination. You really think I would take you on by myself? Void asked with a smirk, leaving the large snake to tilt her head. Gotcha. The Spark finished, as the massive form of Warnog suddenly appeared from behind Yaru and bit down hard upon the back of her head. The large titan screamed in anguish and let go of Void from the impact. Instantly, the Spark began to fall down towards the water below. That was until a hand reached out from the back of the fire serpent and pulled the Spark aboard. Whirling his head, Void found none other than Jida holding onto the back of the beast's fur, while her other was around the Spark's hoodie. "Hey, Blue!" she exclaimed with a nervous smile, before pulling him up with a firm tug. Now, Void found himself latching upon the god's fur as well, and crouching firmly beside the musician, even shaking his head with a dumbfounded expression. "You're so cool." The Spark chuckled out as they both smiled at one another. Back on the ground below, Nock watched as the large fire snake began to drag Yaru towards the sky, while Coco quickly ran up alongside them, watching as well. "Hey, you alright? I hopped off the big guy to check up on you." Nock, however, didn't respond, for he merely just watched as the beast soared higher and higher to the world skies above, all the while whispering, "Please let this work." Moving at breakneck speed, Warnog kept his jaws tight around Yaru, growing higher and higher while the world below was growing to be smaller and smaller.
Hold on tight.
The large god boomed as Yaru snapped and clawed upon his glowing, flaming form. "He's gonna try and warp her to Midgard, just like you said." Jida stated aloud, while now wrapping her hand around Void's. Raising an eyebrow, Void couldn't help but smile in relief to this. For all he knew, it would have probably not worked, given any other circumstance. "So, the big guy listened, huh? Aren't you just a little dragon trainer?" Void replied, making the musician smile to the circumstances. "I'm still taller than you." Jida replied, leaving Void to roll his eyes with a smile. Starting from the back of Warnog's tail, the constellation patterns alongside his fur quickly began to glow and pulsate with energy. Going from a dim campfire glow to a shimmering red, Warnog's power began to quickly ascend up towards his mouth, where it began to grow brighter and brighter with stardust.
Brace yourselves!
The large snake cried as it got ready to deliver its powerful strike into the soul of his love.
No! No!
Yaru suddenly screamed before whipping her head free from Warnog's mouth and blasting him with a powerful dose of her flame, breaking away his left side antler in the process. As Warnog spiraled back down and away, Jida had managed to keep a tight hold upon the beast. Void, however, instantly found himself spiraling midair. The world spun as he began to descend at a rapidly declining rate, but the spark wasn't about to give up. Deploying his mask, Void summoned his electrified blue blades, and then shot them towards Yaru, launching them directly upon her crystallized, frilled cheeks. "Oh no, you don't!" Void cried before pulling himself back forward and then getting atop her head.
You roach! Why won't you die?
Yaru cried as she began to try and shake off the spark, who quickly flipped himself around and got behind the gem on her head. "See? I told you I was like a cockroach," Void replied before shooting his blades into her hide to act as a makeshift harness. "Void? Are you okay?" Jaida's voice suddenly called from within his mind, making the spark roll his head from side to side. "Whoa, what the hell? Jaida?" Void asked back as Yaru continued to spin and try and shake him off. "Oh my god, it worked! Okay. Long story short, Wardog told me that since we both have his flame, I guess, we can actually speak telepathically if we focus hard enough." Jaida suddenly expressed through the depths of Void's mind.
It uses a good amount of energy, so use it sparingly, little flames.
The beast suddenly spoke aloud, making Void shake his head in astonishment. "Craziest day ever," the spark mentioned to himself with a shake in his head. It was then Void got an idea, or rather, a concept that he wasn't sure would work. Given that he now had cosmic fire within his soul, the spark theoretically speculated that maybe he himself could warp in a sense. It sounded ludicrous, but Void and the others were running out of options, so he had to at least try. As Warnog and Jaida quickly reapproached from below, the spark gently knelt down and looked to his hands, summoning sparks of his cosmic electricity to their palms. Taking a deep breath, he then looked upon Yaru's gem and proceeded to take hold. "Midgard of the Nine Realms." The spark began as he closed his eyes shut, beginning to focus upon where he wanted the serpent to go. "Midgard of the Nine Realms." He continued as Wardnog came back up and around, biting hard upon the lower chin of Yaru and sending the beast back upwards near the sky. "Midgard of the Nine Realms." Void spoke again as Jaida herself warped to his side, seeing what he was trying to do. "Midgard of the Nine Realms," she whispered, sensing a surge of her warping essence within the spark, small but there all the same. Taking hold of one of the spark's electrical blade tethers, Jaida stationed herself and began to chant as well, placing her hand over the gem in unison with Void. "Midgard of the Nine Realms! Midgard of the Nine Realms!" They chanted as Yaru's body began to both glow with small hints of blue.
Midgard of the Nine Realms!
Warnog bellowed as Yaru began to both feel dizzy and numb to this combined effort of power.
They will not know what to do without our control.
Yaru cried as she began to claw Warnog's face, leaving the glowing serpent below hurt but unfazed.
You dare defy me, my love. You fell for me. I'm the alpha in this relationship. This is my world, my own kind. All you've ever done was watch. What gives you the right to banish me?
Yaru continued as she locked eyes with Warnog, leaving the broken fire beast to respond in a sense of loss.
Because they are the best parts of us. We must be better than this.
Warnog returned, leaving Yaru to charge her flame once more. Back on the ground, both Nock as well as every other resident within Ophis watched as the massive teal snake got ready to strike again. This time, it would most certainly be a deadly blow. Looking from the beast above, and then to the large sword at his side, Nock shook his head before yelling out with a loud, "God damn it!" Lifting the blade up, Nock pointed it towards the large gem serpent above, leaving Coco to roll her head and ask, "Hey, what are you doing?" Looking from the ripple and then to the snakes above, Nock shrugged his shoulders before retorting, "Stopping the blast!" Shaking the sword, Nock began to stutter and do his best to somehow activate the ancient weapon. He wasn't sure on how it would be used, but he had to try, even if it meant sacrifice, however that may be. "Come on, you piece of shit! Start the blast!" Nock screamed, waving the weapon like a burning marshmallow upon a stick. "Come on! Stop it! Do it!" He continued as the sword remained unfazed. Just shoot the evil snake, you stupid mother! Suddenly, without warning, the blade of Sleek erupted with a purple glow and shot itself out of Nock's hands, blasting towards the sky and blowing both Nock and Coco back from its sudden takeoff. With a magic trail expelling from its behind, the sword grew faster and faster in speed, until rearing itself up upon Yaru's large dorsal plate. Doing as its user had told, the blade suddenly began to spin like a propeller, and within a flash, sliced right through the massive chunk of crystal upon her back. An eruption of teal flames and blood exploded from the wound, canceling out Yaru's attack and leaving her to scream in agonizing rage. Now giving the three a topper the right amount of time needed to end it, once and for all. Midgard of the Nine Realms! Midgard of the Nine Realms! Both Void and Jida chanted. Leaning forward, the two of them touched foreheads as an instinctual notion. As the two connected, a sudden spark of both blue and orange-red energy mixed from their forms, causing a sharp flash of purple cosmic electricity to fire out and envelop Yaru. At the same time, Warnog finished his charge and expelled it upon his love. The massive teal snake instantly began to both glow and dissipate from the combined efforts from the three cosmic users, being warped to the place that would keep her frozen, hopefully forever.
This isn't over,
Were the last words Yaru spoke, before the entirety of her soul vanished in the thin air, leaving only a faint outline of stardust to fade in her outline. Opening their eyes, both Void and Jida found themselves entering into a freefall together. With their hands interlocked, the two of them both gasped to the sudden shock of what had happened. It worked. It actually worked. By Matira! Void shouted as he held Jida close. Oh my god! We did it! I knew we would do it! Jida cried with joy as they descended further and further to the world below. Coming back around within the air, Warnog quickly soared down and gently caught the two lovebirds within his warm, clawed hand.
I got you,
He bellowed before proceeding to then carefully place them both back atop his mane. Crouching within the unbelievably fluffy fur, the two star-crossed lovers looked at one another, smiled, and embraced with a tight hold. Tears swelled in their eyes as the dawning realization settled that they had done it. They had defied both fate and prophecy by dealing with it in their own way. They rewrote the story, proving to the world once again that no matter how dire things get, no matter the circumstances, you can always find a way to come out on top. Standing back to their feet, both Nock and Coco gazed up at what happened and instantly began to celebrate. You did it! You did it! Coco cheered as she shook the mechanic's shoulders, who instantly lit up and began to cheer himself. I did it? Ha! I did it! Yeah! I did it! Nock triumphantly called as he jumped up and down, and then pointed towards the falling stardust in the sky, feeling utter pride in himself for the first time in a long time. Ha! Take that, Yaru! You just got knocked, you stupid son of a... Oh! Before Nock could finish, the blade of Sleek suddenly returned and bonked him hard in the face with its back handle, sending the mechanic crashing hard into the mud, face first. Covering her mouth in shock, Coco gazed down upon the mechanic, before asking with a worried sense of tone, Oh my glipple snips! Are you okay? As the sword gently levitated in the air, Nock only replied with a groaning moan, showing that not all sacrifices involve death. Sometimes, it could just be as small as a punch to the face, or in Nock's case, losing a tooth. He groaned. Soaring back down to the town of Bournemouth, everyone below looked upwards in astonishment to the massive form of Warnog as he descended downwards and gently landed before all. Lowering his massive one-horned head, the snake dropped down both Void, Jida, and the recently picked up Nock and Coco to the wet and damp grass. From all around, the ripples began to cheer in both relief and appreciation to what they had done. Ophis was saved, and they were okay. Awkwardly waving, Void rose his mechanical hand while Jida simply brushed her hair to the side with a nervous chuckle. Nock simply rubbed his head with sword in hand, while Coco embraced the attention, waving her arms and leaping front and center before all, relishing within the world of triumph. Rushing out from the crowd, the grandmother ran towards the group and instantly embraced the young Coco, and then proceeded to rush over and hug Void, Jida, and Nock as well, just relieved that they were all safe. Thank the gods. Your people. Sparklet, they would be so proud, the grandmother expressed, while rubbing the Spark's head in a gentle form of admiration. Thank you, grandmother. Void replied with a heartfelt pause before brushing her hand off with a smile. Please, call me Aunt Delilah. The great axolotl replied before looking at the sword in Nock's hand and waving it off. You can also keep that if you want, she added. No, I'm good, Nock replied before throwing the blade of sleek upon the ground and then leaning against Jida's leg in a tired gesture.
Jida Woods, Void Novison.
Warnock suddenly began, causing everyone to turn and look upon the large snake with astonishing eyes.
Your actions here today have saved millions of lives. I shall forever hold gratitude in your aid in saving the world I hold so dear.
Leaning down to be as close as can be, the large snake eyed down Jida and Void, and then asked something that made the musician's eyes light up with a sharp heartbeat.
If you wish, I can take away the flames embedded within your souls. You can live out the rest of your days having a normal life without what had been forced upon you. If you so wish, say the word.
Looking upon the large snake, and then down to her hands, Jida felt her heart race and mind begin to buzz. A life without her powers. It's something she had longed for so many years. In truth, if she had been in the situation about 2 or 3 years ago, the answer would have been a solid yes. However, Jida had another response in mind, one that made both Void and Nog surprised. That sounds amazing, Warnog. Thank you, but I said it once and I'll say it again, Jida expressed before tapping Void's arm and opening its hatch. Reaching inside, she found a bag full of chunks of the cookie cake they had packed before heading to the park. Taking it out, the musician began to reach in and take a bite, before finishing what she was saying. But I prefer things broken. It makes them more beautiful in my eyes, Jida mentioned again, reminding the Spark of those same words she had said at the end of her graduation. And that includes me, she said with a cheerful smile and looking the Void. That you are, he replied, taking hold of her hand in a very warm clutch.
Very well. Whenever you want, I shall escort you back to your home dimension. Just give me the word when you are ready,
Warnog stated as he rested his head upon the ground. Turning around, Void, Jida, and Nock looked upon the ripples, who all smiled and gave tender stares, as if saying their goodbyes. However, it was then Coco blurted out something that made the three of them light up. Would you guys care for a meal before you hit the road? I know how to make an incredible pot of spaghetti. Eyes widening, Void's expression grew into that of an overjoyed hype, before he looked at Jida and Nock and nodded his head before even letting them have a word in the matter. I love spaghetti, of course, he exclaimed, leaving Jida, Nock, and everyone else to chuckle at the Spark's son excitement. Well, come on then. Let us not waste time. You must be starving, Delilah mentioned as she slowly turned and began making her way towards the lodge, with the other ripples and 3 multiversal heroes following in tow, all in a grateful mindset just to be alive and walk together as one. Walking through the streets of Aurora City in a slow manner, Nock had his hands shoved deep into his pockets, while a gentle fall breeze coursed across his form. Taller people walked past him, some eyeing him and others nodding in a friendly gesture. Nodding back from time to time, the small mechanic maneuvered until stopping and turning his sights upon a set of apartment buildings that lined the sidewalks. They were the community type, all built in similar designs, but all unique in their own right. Looking at a mailbox at his side, Nock read the last name on its ID stamp. Rivers, it said, in big black words upon a number code beside it. Taking a deep breath, Nock walked past the small gate and approached the apartment complex. Biting his lip, he made his way up a small flight of stairs, and then reached a white-painted door that glistened off the fall haze. Reaching out his finger with a shaking posture, he gently clicked upon the building's doorbell, stood back a few feet, and waited. After a few seconds, the sound of the door being unlocked from the other side could be made out. Its latches dropped down and ended with a simple click and turn of its knob. Slowly opening in the light, the resident inside walked his way out and suddenly lit up with surprise. "Knock?" he asked with wide eyes. "Hey, Cot. It's been a while." Knock replied with an awkward smile with his hands gently held behind his back. Cot was an interesting person in terms of looks. For one, his head was spherical and completely upside down, detached from his body. His skin was a baby blue color with a ghostly aura that surrounded it, specifically his head that gently levitated. With dimples and bright white eyes, the odd humanoid being wore a simple t-shirt and shorts, being lanky and slightly taller than Knock himself. But it was unmistakably the same person Knock had been lab partners with, the one he had crushed on. "Holy hell! Hi, how have you been? You look great!" Cot excitedly exclaimed as he brushed himself off and approached the small mechanic, who awkwardly laughed in relief to this positive reaction. "I've been, well..." Finding his words, the mechanic gently crossed his arms and sighed with a pent-up woe of thoughts, before replying with the only words he could say at the moment. "Let's just say, things have been crazy these past few years. Figured it was time to pay an old friend a visit. If you're alright with that, that is." Lighting up with a grin, Cot placed his hand upon Knock's shoulder and gestured for him to walk inside. "Of course, totally. Come on, I just finished some biscuits. I can't believe you even remembered me after all this time." Cot exclaimed as they both walked inside. "You have no idea." Knock replied with a slight blush as the door closed behind them. On the other side of the street, sitting inside Sarvi Sweets, sat Void, who watched the whole thing go down through the bakery's window. As the door closed to the Cot's apartment, the Spark quietly but excitedly clenched his fist in triumph for his little buddy, proceeding to instantly get a text message from him right after. Looking down at his phone, Void read the message from Knock, saying in big bold words, "Holy shit, he was happy to see me!" All Void could reply with was a thumbs up emoji, alongside a smiling sunglasses emoji in response. Never too late to make it work. Void whispered to himself, reminiscing upon Coco's advice.
Even though it's been a few months, cleanup efforts of Aurora City have still been well underway. As we all know, several lives have been lost, but thanks to our city rescue crew, alongside the Phantoms of Aurora aiding the fight, we were able to fight back and protect our city. To every single responder, we thank you.
The news station exclaimed from above atop a TV screen, leaving Void to gently nod to himself, being thankful that his new home was still intact. "Way to go, Aurora," he mentioned with a smile when suddenly, the sound of the bakery door opened with the chime of a bell. Looking up, Void set his sights upon Jida, who was wearing a cold fall attire. She wore a long caramel white coat with a pair of jeans and a scarf. Her hair was now down and loose behind her head, while she even held a cup of coffee at her side. Running over the Void's table with a smile, she quickly sat down and set her things aside, before Void suddenly asked, "Hey, how'd it go? Did you get it?" The Spark inquired about something that Jida had done, or attempted to do. Reaching out her hands, she gripped them upon Void's, and excitedly confirmed, "The music station idea is a go. I'll be getting the materials for setup this weekend," Jida expressed with a gleeful smile. After they had all returned to Aurora, Jida had the idea of creating her own music station for radios, apps, her own little brand to expand upon what she loved. And now, the first steps towards her dream had been achieved, and Void was all the happier for it. Awesome! I'm so proud of you. The Spark exclaimed as the both of them gently settled in their seats and locking eyes. Thanks, Blue. I'm really excited about this. I just hope it works, you know? Jida expressed while blushing towards the Spark. Knowing your music skills and attitude, I'm sure it'll be a hit. Void replied, leaving the musician to look down in a flustered expression. Hey, you two! I'm assuming the usual. Sarv asked as she walked up towards the table with a smile. Cookie cake as per usual. Just a little less frosting this time, please. Jida asked with a smile, leaving Sarv to nod. Like I promised your little blueberry here, it'll be on the house. It was then another person walked up upon them and placed a hand upon Sarv's shoulder. Hey, are these the two that you're always talking about? The unknown man said, getting Jida and Void's attention. He was a large fella, big boned with a mighty yet strong gut. He had light green skin, small eyes that looked to almost be slits, 2 bull-like horns atop his head, and a sharp brown beard that would make most with dad bods cry. He even had a little tuft of hair sprouting from his head as well. However, minus the strong-looking form, the man had a very gentle and friendly smile on display that showed him to be a gentle giant. He was even wearing an apron that said "Kiss the Baker" over a sweater and jeans. Oh, Void, Jida, this is my husband, Tucker. Sarv introduced, leaving the man to hold out his massive hand for a shake. Pleasure to meet you. He greeted, leaving Void and Jida to smile and shake in return. Oh, our pleasure as well. Void expressed with a nod as Sarv went into the back at the kitchen. I'll need your help here in a moment, dear, so make the little introductions quick, she said before leaving the room. Nodding, Tucker crossed his arms and smiled upon both Void and Jida before continuing. Well, when the wife calls, you answer, you know, he said before turning to help Sarv cook. Also, your secrets are safe with me. Thanks for making these streets a safer place, you two. Tucker said with a smile and wink before entering the kitchen. Raising an eyebrow, Void looked at Tucker's fading form before staring back at Jida, who shrugged in response. The Spark had instantly figured that Sarv told him about his and Jida's side gig, but given his words and let alone being married to the most secretive thorn in Aurora, Void let it slide, but he would like to discuss it more with him later. You know, that actually reminds me about something, Blue. Jida then mentioned, looking towards the Spark, who stared back in a curious state. Yeah? What's up? Looking out the window, Jida sighed and tapped her foot before explaining what had been on her mind. With this whole music project, everything about it, it's gonna take up most of my time. That means, what I'm trying to say is, I guess, I'm gonna be hanging up the cloak for the time being. Jida expressed, relocking her eyes with the Spark. I think it's time I retire the Phantom for a while, but I also don't want to leave you out there on your own, you know? Jida expressed, tapping her fingernails upon the table. It's a big city. You never know what may come about. I want to work on my project, but I'm also worried that if I were to abandon what I do now, Tilting his head with a smile, Void reached out and placed his mechanical mitt upon Jida's shoulder before interrupting her. Freckles, I got you covered, the Spark stated as he gestured towards the city outside. The whole city. All of it. I can handle it on my own, he explained, leaving Jida to quiver her mouth into a small smile. You've been protecting this place for years. I think it's time Jida Woods leaves her mark to get out there and be herself, Void finished as the two of their faces inched closer towards one another. I love you, Void, Jida expressed with a tender gaze on display. I love you too, Jida. The Spark returned as they both leaned in and kissed in a loving and warm connection in their souls.